Can you see us at the bottom?
Mhm. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shalita Cushenberry, and today's webinar will discuss real love, real talk, dating violence, um, dating violence. Sorry about that. So we have two individuals here, Ms. Paige and Miss Macy, who are going to facilitate information about this particular topic. They will have some interactive things for you to respond back to throughout the presentation. So engagement is required. And so without further ado, I'll let them get started.
Hi, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Shalita, for the introduction. We just want to take some time this afternoon to kind of talk about dating violence and what that looks like. My name is Macy Lapruz. I'm the Sexual Violence Programs Director at the Haven, and I'm also a licensed counselor.
And my name is Paige Pellegrin. I am the outreach director at the Haven. So we're going to get started and just go over some group agreements for today. So just want to make sure that everything we discuss today, especially anything that anyone in the during this session shares, we want to make sure we keep that confidential so that this can be a safe place so that we can all share anything that we feel we need to. Um, we also, if you can, keep your cameras on and your sound muted unless you have something that you would like to share or say, and you could also use the chat box. I'm going to try and listen and be active, um, speak from an I perspective. So we don't want to try and give advice or tell somebody what they should do, but if you're sharing, you want to make sure that you're coming from like your own perspective and experiences that you've had. And then, of course, be respectful to everyone. And then we want to listen and not judge. We want this to be a judgment-free area zone.
All right, so during the next hour, we will go ahead and identify the characteristics of a healthy relationship. What do you deserve in a relationship, and how should you treat others? We'll also identify what are those warning signs or red flags of abuse. We'll help you all understand boundaries, consent, and what does safety look like. And then we'll just learn how to support a friend. Maybe we have a friend that has experienced some dating violence, and sometimes we just don't know what's the right words to say or where to send them to get help. So we look forward to being with y'all for the next hour.
So we're going to start with just kind of talking about what is dating and dating relationships. So dating is it's kind of on this spectrum. So it's when two people spend any kind of time together, whether that's in person, whether that's through technology. Sometimes, you can be dating and maybe you've never actually, you know, been in person with or met that person, I guess, in person, right? So maybe y'all are talking, texting, messaging, communicating on social media. Um, if y'all are hanging out in person, maybe y'all are just hanging out, going on dates, things like that. So it could kind of start off like that, or that can be what dating is, and it could go all the way to actually committed long-term relationships and things like that. So and everything kind of in between. So when we're going to be talking today and going over all these things, we're just kind of like talking about all those different dating behaviors.
So when we think about dating, healthy relationships, we want to think about respect, trust, emotional safety, and what are the things that you value in your relationship. Dating one another allows you to learn about that person, learn about what their boundaries are, what kind of communication do you cherish in your relationship, and what is healthy. What is healthy to you? What is healthy to your partner? And what is not? Dating often turns to abuse whenever one partner tries to control or harm the other. The relationship crosses into unhealthy or abusive territory when we see those tactics, such as threats or intimidation, or lack of privacy, blaming, and we'll get more into that in a second. So we just want to go over next a few numbers. Dating violence, unfortunately, is very common. And we look at about 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men will experience severe intimate partner violence in their lifetime, which I think Paige and I would both agree that that's a huge statistic.
It's very common. And just kind of to add to that, you know, just kind of remembering that, because we're going to start talking about dating violence, that it can happen to anybody. So it doesn't matter how old you are, um, what race you are, where you come from, how much money you have, how much money you don't have, anywhere in between, anybody can be, or anybody can be in an abusive relationship. Um, Abuse doesn't discriminate. So that's why this is so important, for us to talk about and, for hopefully everybody to hear, because even if you never experience this, maybe you might see the signs or you might know someone who is going through this, and then you'll have some knowledge and some information so that you can point it out or help them, and then hopefully give them some resources.
So, dating violence is often characterized by a pattern of harmful behaviors used by one person. When we think about violence, we want to think about strictly power and control. Doing these things for one person to have power and control over someone else. Again, this can be in any realm. It can be person, online, through technology. It doesn't require you living in the same household with that person for it to be dangerous or it to be serious. We see a lot of forms of abuse, specifically right now online, with various social media platforms. And I think a big thing to know is that it's not just physical harm. A lot of times when we think of dating violence, or we even think of domestic violence, we immediately go to that physical aspect, the hitting, the punching, the slapping, choking. But that isn't just what constitutes dating violence. It is the controlling, it's the power, it's isolating someone from their friends or family, it's making them feel guilty about setting boundaries. This type of abuse, emotional and verbal abuse, typically starts very subtle. And as time progresses in that relationship, it escalates over time. And oftentimes it escalates to those physical or those sexual tactics that we see.
And just to kind of add to that, and we're going to get into the types of abuse in a second, but I know that Macy and I both, working at the Haven, we work with a lot of survivors. And so something that we often hear with the survivors that we work with is that one of the things, or one of the reasons why they're hesitant to call us or to come in for services is because in their relationship, there might not have been any physical violence or any physical abuse. And so they think that, well, it's not abusive because it hasn't escalated to that. But, what we hope everybody understands, and if you get anything from this today, we hope you get this, is that there are several types of abuse, and that physical violence and physical abuse is just one form and one tactic that is used. And so it doesn't necessarily always have to escalate to that. So even if physical abuse happens in a relationship and then it stops happening for a while, that still doesn't mean that there isn't other types of abuse going on. And some relationships that are abusive never escalate to physical violence either. So, but it is the most common, I think, that a lot of people are aware of, and that I've heard that many of times that people will say that, well, if you don't see the bruises, if you're not getting hit, then that means it's not abusive. And that's a myth. That's not the truth at all.
And I think physical violence is more often portrayed and displayed in our media, social media, movies, music. A lot of times we're going to that physical violence, and that's what's seen, that's what's visible in society.
Okay, so we're going to talk about the different types of abuse. So there's verbal and emotional abuse. Um, and so this is whenever, and it's all about behaviors, right? It's all about the behaviors that the partner who is trying to have power and control over the other, they're using these different behaviors and tactics in these different ways. And so it's going to be derogatory words, name calling, mind games, gaslighting, maybe making their partner feel like they're crazy, things like that. That's more of what the verbal and emotional abuse is. This one, and Macy can maybe comment on that, but I know that when I've worked with survivors, that they'll say this is probably the one that takes the longest for them to heal from, because it's like these emotional scars, and it's also it happens very subtly and over time in their relationship, and it's very manipulative, and it's hard to for them even to understand, and they're confused about what's going on. And so because a lot of times it's followed up with what's perceived as kindness or romantic behavior afterwards.
Yeah. It also is constant criticism, insults, humiliation, degrading, being called a degrading name for 2 months at a time. You're going to start to think that you are that person, right? And so it does a lot on your emotions and your self-worth and your self-esteem. So emotional abuse a lot of times tears down those things, which makes it very, very much harder for a survivor of dating violence or domestic violence to leave that abusive relationship because their self-esteem is low.
And then you have to also remember for this one and all the other types that we're about to talk about, this is coming from someone who, you're in a relationship with, that that you like, you really like, you might love, that y'all might be in a long-term committed relationship, and that have probably told you very sweet things, and then they're constantly telling you these other, horrible things. Nobody's gonna love you. Nobody's gonna want you like I do. If you leave me, who's gonna put up with you? Like all these different things. And a lot of times they're tapping into maybe some insecurities or some vulnerabilities that you might have shared with them when you were building this relationship with them, right? And then they take that and they twist it and they use that to hurt you. Okay. So the next one is physical abuse. Um, and again, this one's probably, I would think, the most obvious or well known that a lot of people are aware of. So anytime someone's using their body or any sort of physical force in order to have power and control over their partner. So this is going to be hitting, slapping, punching, um, grabbing, shoving, strangulation. Um, it could also be threats, like physical threats. We hear a lot of um, abusers taking their survivors' phones and breaking them, um,
Destroying any property,
destroying any property, um,
hitting walls,
hitting walls,
slamming doors.
throwing things at at that person, and maybe not hitting them but throwing it right next to them, like physically blocking them from being able to leave, or get away from them, um, holding them down, restraining them, um, and some of these things you might be able to see, but then sometimes um, they're very, I guess they try and hide hide what they're doing. So like I know that I worked with a survivor, and she would tell me that her abuser would hit her in the head like when he would punch her, he would hit her in the head because nobody could see the marks and the bruises. So, so if she ever called the cops, who would believe her? When she would go other places, like nobody's gonna see what he's doing to her because nobody can see that. Um, so
Okay, so stalking. This is repeated unwanted attention that causes fear or concern for safety. So putting tracking devices on your phone, putting tracking devices on your vehicle, following you, frequenting stores that you normally go to, frequenting the bank that you normally stop at on your way home, um, driving by your house multiple times a day, multiple times a night, just any type of repeated behavior that causes fear or concern to you.
let's say you, I don't know, had plans with your family or friends, and so you were going to be away from your partner for a night or an evening or something like that. They just show up there. Um, and it's like a repeated thing. Let's say that y'all are no longer together and they're constantly sending you multiple, like 100 phone calls, 100 messages, um, wanting to get back together, trying to get you to answer them, call you. Then they might show up anywhere you are. So things like that. And also, this one can also be a stranger as well. So this could be someone that you don't know, and they could be doing these same behaviors as well.
All right, then we have sexual abuse. So this is any unwanted or forced sexual acts or sexual contact. Um, Pressure into sex, coercion into sex, sexting without consent. A lot of times when we think of sexual abuse, we think of outside of our relationship. We think of a friend, an acquaintance, family member, or a stranger sexually assaulting or sexually abusing someone. But in this context, it's very important for us to talk about how sexual abuse can happen in an intimate partner relationship. It can happen in a dating relationship. Um, Feeling pressured into sex with that abuser or perpetrator withholding something from you. So saying things like, if you don't have sex with me, then I won't pay your car note, right? Whenever that abuser is responsible for your car note. Saying things as if you don't have sex with me, I'll go have sex with someone else. So sexual abuse is very common in our dating relationships, not just outside of the dating realm.
And it could also be like holding things over you, like over your head too, or just like a constant harassment of it. So like unwanted, like groping and things like that too. Um, Maybe, I don't know, there was just like a verbal argument and um, they called you a lot of derogatory names or brought up some things, and then they're pressuring you to have sex, and so you don't want to do that. But then you get accused of cheating on them, right? And so that kind of all falls under that category. And then digital abuse. So this is basically like just any time the partner's trying to control you or control their partner over technology. So phone, social media, messaging, email. Um, this would be more where, taking advantage of like the location sharing. So like, let's say that was something that was agreed in a relationship that y'all would share location, but then they're they're tracking you all the time outside of that. So maybe you can send it to one time to doing it, and then now y'all, they're tracking you all the time, and you're not aware of it or you didn't consent to it. Um, Maybe forcing you to give all your passwords to things up, so that way they can look at all your accounts. You have to maybe hand over your phone so they can check your phone, and then they question you about it. Um, Trying to think of some other things.
You got
Yeah.
plenty.
Yeah.
And I also want to add before we jump to our next screen is financial abuse. Financial abuse is something that we see very, very, very frequently. Um, Financial abuse is using finances to control someone else. So this can look like many different things, such as forcing you to have a job or actually not allowing you to have a job. This could also be one partner, the abuser, controlling all the finances, having all the passwords to the bank account, making all the big financial decisions. This can be with the abuser only allowing the survivor an allowance specifically for the week or for the month. Um, Using credit to destroy someone's name, or yeah, using credit to destroy someone's name. Um, can you think of it?
I think
But financial abuse, we're going to add to this little slide. We didn't just have time to do that today.
so. What we're gonna do next is we have a little activity. Um, it's know it, name it, stop it. And so we have these scenarios that will pop up, and then if it's physical abuse, verbal or emotional abuse, digital abuse, sexual abuse, stalking, or financial abuse, you can just, if you think you know what it is, you could just put it in the chat box. Okay, so first one is your partner forces you to have sex even though you said no.
So obviously, this one right here, your partner forces you to have sex, even though you say no. That is a form of sexual abuse.
Next one.
Your former partner continues to contact you and shows up at your work, home, and school uninvited. Paige?
So this one it could be stalking. I would say stalking their former partner.
Agreed.
Okay.
Your partner threatens to hurt themselves if you leave them. This is a form of emotional abuse. Threatening to hurt themselves if you leave them, threatening to hurt you if you leave them, threatening to
Hurt an animal or pet, family members.
take the kids from you if you leave them. So any form of threat, we kind of fall under that emotional abuse.
So you have to ask your partner before you spend any money. That would be financial abuse, where they have control over the finances, the money, and you have to ask basically permission in this situation before you can spend anything.
Your partner demands you to give them your password to your phone, social media accounts. This is a form of that digital abuse. Wanting to look through your phone, wanting to look through your messages, wanting to control what you put on your social media, what you post, where you check in at, all a form of digital abuse.
All right, and then this is the last one, I think. No, it's not. Okay. During an argument, you try to leave, but your partner breaks your phone by throwing it across the wall and takes your car keys. So I would say physical for this one, because they broke your phone. So I would say they grabbed it and you threw it, right? And then they're also taking your keys, so you can't leave, physically stopping you from doing that. You agree with that?
Yep.
Okay.
Your partner grabs your arm and leaves a bruise. This is physical abuse. Again, remembering that physical abuse is any form of physical violence.
This is the last one.
That's the
Okay,
last one.
this is the last one. After a disagreement, your partner uses the silent treatment and won't talk to you for days. So I would say this probably goes into that verbal and emotional category, because then, it's like those mind games, the silent treatment. They're making you feel like you did something wrong, and you have to basically kind of make up for it. Right?
Okay, so our next activity is relationship red flag relay. So as we go into speaking about red flags, we want to give you all a little second to write down as many dating violence red flags you can think of in the chat box. We'll give you a little time to do that, and then we'll go into what are the red flags of dating violence. All right, so red flags. Red flags are warning signs that a relationship may be becoming harmful, often involving patterns of control, manipulation, intimidation. Again, these behaviors start subtly and they escalate over time, making early recognition crucial for safety and intervention.
Okay. So, some warning signs to watch for, um, if you are dating, when you're dating, and other people who are dating, um, can be just put downs, threats, or physical harm, any sort of controlling behavior, jealousy or isolation from friends or family, pressuring your partner to, or their partner to do things that they're uncomfortable with. Um, Anytime one of the partners is afraid, unsafe, or maybe feels silenced in the relationship, um, partner makes you feel unable or fearful of making decisions without their approval, and then prevent you from working, attending school, or making any of your own decisions. And the way they do that might look different depending on the relationship and the person. But and again, you can't kind of take this um, list outside of the context of it. It's about a pattern and a cycle, so it's not like these isolated incidents. So, we don't want anybody to be like, oh, well, I'm jealous sometimes. This is like an extreme form of jealousy. Like, if you look at another guy or girl, then um, you're not allowed to, and I want you to keep your head down, kind of thing. So it's like to the extreme
Yes.
level. When we talk about controlling behavior, it might be, I don't really like you in the color yellow, so you need to throw away everything in your closet that's yellow. And I really like the color red or green, so you need to only wear that color. You know, things like that. Anything else you want?
We can go a little bit more into some examples of these warning signs. So, you know, isolating you. So, I don't really think that you should spend time with that friend. That friend doesn't care for you the way that you care for them. Or saying things like, you shouldn't feel that way, right? Your feelings don't matter. Ghosting. Ghosting on social media is another red flag of abuse. um, Saying things like, oh, you don't need to go to that outside commitment. You don't need to go to your family reunion. Again, that's a form of isolation, wanting to keep you in the home, wanting to keep you away from others.
And it could also be like they're trying to create like wedges and conflict between you and people you're close with. because they want you to be only with them all the time. So, and some of the things might not even be true that they're telling you. So it might be, well, I heard that, your best friend or whoever was talking about you, or, they really want me, and they're only friends with you, or they're staying friends with you because, they're trying to get with me, kind of thing. Or it could be, the same thing with family. So they might, I don't know, they might say, I heard your family's talking about you, or they might start conflict themselves with your family and kind of put you in this situation where you have to choose between them or your family. And it's all about constantly having to prove your loyalty, explain yourself, and it's kind of like they'll make it seem like it's just us, it's me and you against everybody else, right? It's almost like how it is.
Gaslighting also is a warning sign. I lost my track of thought.
Well, gaslighting is, I think that's kind of probably a more common term nowadays. I think a lot more people are aware of it, but it's like making you feel like you're crazy, making you like, example, so let's say that, I don't know, you, you didn't put something in your phone,
Yep.
right? Like, you didn't
Turn on
post-
your location.
Yeah, or
You
you
know you
didn't, or
didn't
you
turn
didn't
on
post
your-
that. You didn't post that, or you didn't text that to somebody, and then that's there. So maybe they have access to your accounts, and you know that you didn't share that with them. You didn't give them your password, but then somehow, maybe while you were sleeping, they got on your phone and they did that. Or maybe they created a fake account and they're pretending to be someone else so that they can find out information.
Yep.
Or they're trying to trick you. They're trying to trick you to see if you're going to cheat on them, right?
Another common term too when we think of warning signs is love bombing. Love bombing is wanting to be with you all the time, expressing a lot of love, buying you a lot of things very, very early on in the relationship. Like Paige had said, it's us. It's us against the world. It's us against you. Wanting you to spend every free minute with them, wanting to be with you at all times. Wanting to text you at all times, wanting to be on the phone with you at all times, wanting to FaceTime you at all times. So that's also a warning sign of.
So like I worked with a survivor, and she would tell me that like she had to be like she was the only one that worked and her partner did not, and so she made the income in the family, and so she'd have to go to work, and so she would have to be on FaceTime with him multiple times a day while she was at work, like to prove that she was there. And if she didn't answer the FaceTime call, then he was like texting her and
Calling her work,
calling her.
riding by her work.
And so she's like, I just got to do it because if not, I know I'm going to have to pay for that later. So,
Okay, so next we'll go into our power and control wheel. In these domestic violence and dating violence relationships, power and control is at the center. Abusers in the beginning of the relationship have to gain the power and control, and then throughout the duration of the relationship, they have to maintain that power and control. And they do that through these different tactics that you'll see around this power and control wheel. We'll kind of quickly go through, trying to pay attention to our time, but we'll kind of quickly go through each of the spokes, which again are the tactics that abusers use. And the first one we're going to talk about is intimidation or intimidating. So this kind of looks like causing fear through looks, gestures, behaviors. Um, Go ahead.
can I go? Okay. So it's kind of like whenever you were younger, when you were a kid, and like your parent or your caregiver would give you that look. and you knew that look, and you knew that meant that you were going to get in trouble, um, because maybe you were making a bad choice. And so, but instead, this is not your parent or caregiver, this is your partner that you're supposed to be equal with. And but they're playing this role of like a parent or a caregiver, but it's, it's like they're chastising you, right? Um, it can also be like, so I can't show you because I'm sitting down, but like if me and Macy were partners, right? If I'm like, I'm not hitting you, but like I'm gonna maybe get really close to her, get in her face, like kind of back her almost into a wall, like she's backed into a corner, kind of thing. So like maybe they're using their body in their size, and it doesn't have to be physical. It can be like, let's say that they're very well known, right? Like, let's say they're very well known. A lot of us live in very small and rural communities, and where everybody knows everybody and things like that. So maybe they'll use people they know, and things like that to intimidate you, right? So if you say anything to anybody, if you leave me, whatever, then I'm gonna get my friends or my whoever's whoever knows the sheriff or a lawyer or whatever, and you're gonna pay for this. So
It could also be a tone of voice and displaying weapons, not using weapons against you, but just having the weapon present in the home or having the weapon present on the body, just making you creating this very fearful environment because you're unsure of what that person's going to do next. Then we got emotional abuse, put downs, name callings, humiliation, gesturing, um, mind games, silent treatment, telling you you're not good enough, guilting you, blaming you for the abuse.
body shaming, yes.
Absolutely.
It could also be like like they might constantly compare you to
Other
like
people.
our past partners. Um, and it could be in ways that aren't necessarily, they might not sound like a put down, right? They might say it with a smile on their face, you know, um, or kind of like those backhanded comments, right? And so that's kind of where that gaslighting comes in, because you're like, man, I mean, he just said, or they just said this, but then like it makes me feel bad about myself. And I feel like my boyfriend or girlfriend shouldn't tell me that. But then, um, but I guess when I say it back to myself, it doesn't really seem that bad, right? Maybe I'm overreacting.
Maybe it's me.
Maybe it's
Maybe
me.
I'm the problem.
Maybe it's because of my past. Maybe it's because of this or that, right? Um, or maybe like they'll say something like, well, it's because of where you came from, right? It's because of your family, you know. And then sometimes they're doing things in front of other people where they're intentionally humiliating you. So let's say you shared things that you've gone through, or you've told them things in private, right? And then they're saying that, or they're making jokes about it, or whatever, to humiliate you in front of other people. They'll come up and they'll say, "Oh, that was just a joke. I didn't mean to." And then you're like, but I asked you not to tell anybody that. Um, but then they're like, "Oh, I didn't remember that." But you remember very clearly that you said, "If I tell you this, please don't say it to anybody." And then they've just said it in front of a group of friends or family or whoever, right? And basically humiliated you. I think I said enough on that. Okay. So, isolating or isolation. So this is all about just trying to get you away from anyone, any support system, even outside like activities or hobbies or anything else in your life, so that way you feel like you have no one, nothing other than this person.
Yes. And I think also when we think of isolation, we think of strictly that, for example, I'm going to tell Paige that she can't go to her family's house. I'm going to tell her that she can't go to her friend's house. But it does look different in many relationships. Let's say that Paige had an outside engagement with a friend. They were going to have dinner, but right before Paige walks out the door, her abuser creates a
I never want to spend time with him.
Mhm.
I'm always going out with my girlfriends.
blaming her,
I must be
shaming
going to
her.
cheat on him.
And so she's crying, she's upset, and she just doesn't want to go now,
So then
right?
I flake out on my friends, and then, or he comes along with us, and then now everybody's upset at me because,
He's here.
right, and he always is there, or I always cancel. And so now they don't want to hang out with me no more, right? So now, because I can't talk to them because he also wants to look at my, right? Because he thinks they don't like him, right? So it's just things like that. So it's not always, um,
I'm
you know,
telling you, you can't go.
right. It's now, yeah, we're not saying it doesn't because it can escalate to that, but also it sometimes, usually when it first starts and it's building to all these things, it will start off like this, or it might look like, I think we're not spending enough time together. I really want us to have more time with just us. I feel like everybody else is getting in the way and they're all trying to get between us. So I think that you need to probably cut back on your hours at work, right? Maybe, if you just quit your job, I could take care of you. And, all of that sounds great, how they put it. Um, until then that gets used against you that, but this is my money. And I can tell you what you can and can't do with it. Okay.
All right, we got denying, blaming, and minimizing. Making light of the abuse, saying that the abuse did not happen, saying that you caused the abuse. Well, if you would have done this, then I wouldn't be angry, right? Blaming you. Well, you should have had dinner cooked when I got home, then the family would I wouldn't be angry at the family. We wouldn't have had this chaotic night, right? So always blaming someone else, and that's something that through our time here and in fact show is that knowing that abusers will never take accountability. They will never take responsibility for their actions. It will always be blamed upon the other person, whether that is their partner, whether that is a coworker, whether that is a random stranger that they encountered on their way home. Whatever they're feeling, they're going to blame it on the other person.
And this is, again, this kind of, I guess, category here is something that me and Macy and I hear a lot when we're working with survivors, because this is one of the common things that their abusive partners have always told them. So they're constantly feeling like they got to explain themselves, they got to rationalize everything that they do. But, it could be like, I didn't do that, right? Like, that never happened. Or it's, well, I barely touched you. At least I didn't hit you
Right.
when I threw that at you, right? Like, I just threw it next to you. I could have hit you if I wanted to. So, like, minimizing it in that sense. Or, well, at least it's not like how my dad beat my mom, right? At least I'm not putting my hands on you, right? Or, like, things like that.
It's not that bad.
It's not that bad. I could be doing worse to you if I wanted to, but I'm not. And then the blaming is, it's a lot of times it's always towards the survivor, but it also is on other things as well, other people, other things. So what we'll experience a lot, or we'll hear a lot, is like, well, it's just because they're involved with like alcohol or drugs. And so whenever they're not using, they're completely fine, right? But this is the thing, is that, again, abuse is about power and control, right? And it's not about anger, or they have anger problems, right? It's not about those things. This is what they're trying to get, and keep. And although alcohol and drugs may intensify it, that doesn't cause it, right? Abuse is a learned behavior. Um, and there are people in this world who do struggle with addiction and who do use drugs and alcohol, and they're not abusive to their partners, right? Um, just the same as there are people who have who have experienced abuse in their past, in their childhood, or witnessed it, right? Where they have seen violence happen, they have been abused themselves, and they're not abusing their partners, right? So we'll also hear that a lot too, from survivors is, but his he was hurt or they were hurt, or they seen that happen. But again, that doesn't mean that that's okay, and that doesn't cause someone to be and treat another person this way. These are behaviors that a person chooses to do in order to gain this over their partner, and it's very controlled because they can flip it off as soon as somebody's around. Like if the police come, they're perfectly fine, right? They're perfectly controlled. Whenever other people are around, um, they seem like they're a great person, right? So they can pick and choose when and where they do this at too, right? Which is oftentimes why it happens whenever nobody's around, in secret. And that adds a lot of shame and guilt for survivors because they feel like, again, it's them and they're doing it and they can stop it too and they cannot.
So the other, another tactic that we're going to talk about is using children. Creating guilt about the children, using visitation to harass the other partner, threatening to take the kids away, using the children to relay messages, just really putting the children at the center and as a segue for that power and control.
Kind of using them like as a point.
Correct. Now we're gonna pay attention to our time, so we're gonna kind of
Yeah.
run through this. We got gender roles and male privileges. So this is the male privilege, making all the big decisions in the relationship, in the household, being the one to define what I'm gonna do versus what you're gonna do, treating the survivor, the victim, as a servant. This is what you're gonna do. These are your tasks. We don't step outside of this role. In better words, and thinking about it, it's I'm the master of the castle. You're gonna listen to me.
And it's kind of going more with the those traditional gender roles from in the past, right? So, I'm a man, you're a woman, I'm your boyfriend, your husband, whoever, you're my wife. So you should be seen and heard. You gotta stay at how you gotta stay at home. You gotta raise the kids. I don't do those things, right? And the different or about this part is that it's the partner who's controlling and who's abusive. They define these roles. It's not like a mutual thing. Like we're setting boundaries and we're deciding who does what. It's I'm telling you what we're doing. Like I'm telling you when you can, how you're going to act and how I'm going to act. And then they use that to back up all this different behavior. Like I don't know how many times that I've heard or some survivors shared, like boys are going to be boys, and she's a girl, she's a woman, so she's just emotional. You know how they are, like that kind of thing. So it kind of goes back to all those stereotypes. That kind of helps build it, which we want to try and break that. So, okay.
And then, as we talked about that economic or that financial abuse, keeping that survivor from the financial freedom, allowing them to work, prohibiting them to work, making all the big financial decisions, giving an allowance, withholding money, using your name and credit.
A lot of times, well, sometimes what we hear is like, so if a survivor tries to get a job or she has one, then the abuser will try and sabotage that job. So whether it's showing up over there, causing trouble, contacting her, so much so where she's constantly, kind of having to,
To trouble.
yeah, like, she's getting in trouble with her boss, her supervisors, whatever,
Right.
because he won't stop. And she's trying to get him to stop, and so then she ends up losing her job.
And I think when we think of the economic abuse, we want to think about dependency. Um, that abuser wants that survivor to depend on him or her. They don't want that survivor to have any resources, whether that's financial, supportive, no resources, because if that survivor has resources, that survivor has a job to get money, if that survivor has a support system to stay with, then that survivor is more inclined to leave this abusive cycle. So if we take away the job, if we take away and isolate from the support system, then
It's
we're
more
more
obstacles.
inclined to stay. It's more
Mhm.
obstacles to work through to exit that relationship. So that's what I think about when I think about economic abuse and the ways that abusers um, tend to get survivors away from the job is the dependency, wanting full control over that person's financial supportive resources. And then last but not least, we have coercion and threats. Threatening harm to that person, threatening harm to the pets, threatening harm to the family members, threatening if that person wants to leave. If I'm finally working up the courage to say I want to leave, and then now I'm threatened. I'm threatened that he or she is going to hurt themselves. I'm threatened that they're going to hurt me. I'm threatened that they're going to go get my kids from school and never allow me to see them again. Um, I'm threatened that they're going to call immigration on myself, you know, and any other type of
DCFS.
threats or pressure that is used to keep you within this cycle, within this wheel.
So, um, the next thing we'll go into is how, so abuse is, it's this cycle, right? And so there are these different phases or stages that it kind of goes through. And the thing about it is that it's always going to repeat. And so what we're going to do is we're going to just kind of go through the different phases of abuse. So the first one is, and again, remember that not all relationships are the same. So, um, it's not always going to go in this order. It can go in whatever kind of order, because everybody's different. But these are kind of, after some research and things like that, this is kind of what they came together with. So tension building phase, this is how we kind of describe it is, when we're working with survivors, is like it feels like you're walking on eggshells. Um, so there's a lot of criticism. This is probably where there's gonna be a lot of like verbal abuse, a lot of emotional abuse. Like, there's a lot of jealousy here. There's a lot of controlling behavior, um, a lot of blame put on the survivor in this phase. It's like constant arguments, criticizing. It's going to be the silent treatment, things like that. That is behavior that the abuser is doing towards the survivor, and then the survivor is just trying to like calm them down, keep the peace, like just trying to kind of like placate them. They don't want any conflict to happen. They don't want this person to blow up. They want to change them. They want everything to be okay. Um, so they're just trying to do anything they can. So if they're being accused of, I don't know, cheating or looking at somebody else, and they're gonna be like, okay, I'm so sorry, I shouldn't have did it, even though they didn't do anything, right? Because they just want it to stop. They just want that person to calm down, um, and they don't want to upset them. And so a lot of the emotions, or some common emotions that they might feel, the survivor might feel, is anxious, confused, a lot of feeling responsible for what's going on because they're being blamed for all of it. Then typically, or usually, what will happen after that tension building is an explosion or a blow up will happen. So that this is the explosion phase or the blow up phase, and this is going to be when whatever form of abuse, whether it's typically, if it's going to be physical violence, there might be some physical violence. If it's going to be um, a threat may happen. If it's going to be sexual violence, that might happen here, but something will happen in this part of the cycle. So the abuser yell, insult, threaten them, physically hurt them. They might destroy their property, lash out in some way. So whatever that looks like, those are going to be the behaviors that happen. And then what the survivor is going to do is they're going to try to protect themselves, or if there's children or pets or their family, whoever might have been on the end of that threat or threats that have been made in the past by the abuser, they're going to try and protect those people in whatever way that is to them, that they feel like would be protection, even if it's putting themselves in harm's way, right? They might blame themselves, right? Like, so if whatever the abuser does, and that results in a consequence of maybe like them going to jail, right? Then the survivor might blame themselves because how do I get these charges dropped for domestic violence because he only strangled me because I upset him, right? So, or they may minimize what happened, you know. So, um, they're gonna just make excuses or try and be like it wasn't that bad, or just kind of be more in like that denial. And then just their fear, shock, just maybe numb to all of it, depending on how many times they've gotten to this part of the cycle as well. Because again, this can happen in 2 minutes. This can happen over the span of months, years. Um, so then we go to the next part of it, which this is the honeymoon phase. And typically abusive relationships will start off here and then kind of then they'll end up here at some point because this always kind of follows that that blow up phase. So it's gonna look different. So either um, they're very their behavior is very kind, romantic, like over the top, like let's go on a vacation, let's get married, here's some gifts, you know, everything's extravagant, kind of like that love bombing that Macy was talking about earlier. And then, or it's going to be like maybe some apologies, but the apologies are all manipulative. So instead of them saying like, I shouldn't have did that, I was wrong, I got a problem, it's going to be, you know, I'm sorry, but all these other things, or you know, we need to really work on things, right? Because you just make me so upset, and you know I can't, you know I don't know any better, and so like they'll say things, and their language will kind of be like that, and you know, we need to do couples counseling, right? Because it's us, it's we need to work on this. It's never going to be a you, like it's never going to be a them, that their behavior is not okay, their behavior is unacceptable. And so they're gonna apologize in some form of that. They're gonna cry. They're gonna change. They're gonna go to rehab. They're going to move out the house for a little bit. They're going to what else they're gonna do? They're gonna do something. They're gonna go to yeah. They're gonna agree to go to counseling. They're gonna do all these things. They're gonna make all these promises. All these promises. And then they're going to blame it on all these other things. And then there's going to be this hope because now they're really like who they were when y'all got together and when you fell in love with them, right? Like they're being so sweet, they're being such a good dad, they're being like all these different things. But what happens is eventually it always repeats. And every time it repeats, every time this cycle repeats, it intensifies. The incidents start happening more frequent. In between, it
And
becomes
the
more violent.
honeymoon phase becomes more minimal.
Yeah,
A lot more minimal.
it shrinks, and the other two get bigger.
And I just want to add, as Paige had said, a lot of times when we start relationships, we're in this honeymoon phase too. When we engage in relationships, we just don't run into that tension building phase. more often than not, we're in the honeymoon phase right at the beginning of the relationship. Typically, about 3 months, we're in it where your partner's promising you things, loving you, being very kind, being very caring, being very sweet, buying you things, saying, as she said, we're going to get married, we're going to move in, I'm going to treat your kids like my kids, we're going to have a family, we're going to do all these things, right? And so survivors hold on to this. They hold on to these promises, they hold on to this love, they hold on to this care, they hold on to this type of person. And then after every explosion, after every blow up, that abuser comes in and gives them a little taste of the honeymoon phase. And that survivor emotionally thinks, well, maybe this is the last time.
Because he's not always like that, or they're
Right.
not always like that.
Maybe this is the last time, or I can help them be that person that they were in the beginning of the relationship. They were that person for 3 months. It's somewhere in there,
Right.
and we just hold on to that.
Because this is not who they really are. They're really who they were when I met them, right? And so that's kind of what happens. And it this honeymoon phase, how it goes back and forth, especially like in the beginning, it might look like, um, you know, I I just love you so much, or I really like you, like I've never had this connection with anybody before, um, and I just want to hang out with you all the time. And so let's say you're somebody who a value for you is like your friendship with people in your life, right, in your family, and you might spend a lot of time with those people, and so every time you go to do that, this is what your partner keeps telling you, right? Like, I just feel like maybe you must not be as into me as I am to you because, you know, you're always with everybody else, right? And so then you feel like again you have to choose.
A lot of conflicting feelings here. Some relief, some hope that things are going to get better, but a lot of confusion, a lot of confliction.
All right, so we have an activity called Break the Cycle. So we're going to read through a few scenarios, and you'll identify what part of the cycle of abuse you think is going on in that scenario. So, and you can just put that in the chat box. So, whether it is the tension building phase, the explosion phase, or the honeymoon phase.
All right, so let's go with the first one. They start to make passive aggressive comments when you hang out with your friends instead of them. Again, they start making passive aggressive comments when you hang out with your friends instead of them.
Tension building.
Yes, that is tension building. Okay. They throw your phone across the room during a fight.
Explosive phase.
Explosive phase. They scream and throw your backpack across the room. They scream and throw your backpack across the room.
Explosive.
And I just want to add that every relationship's different. Every phase in every relationship is going to look different. So when we think about explosion phase, we often think about that severe physical or that severe sexual violence. But some relationships never experience that physical or that sexual violence. So an explosion phase may be the screaming, throwing backpacks, throwing phones, breaking phones. Right? Yes, it is still physical violence, but it's not bruises. It's not choking. It's not hitting.
Right.
Okay?
Let's see this one. Okay. They show up with your favorite snacks and say, "I just get scared of losing you."
Honeymoon.
Honeymoon. Mhm. They post a story calling you fake and block you for a day.
Tension.
Tension building, absolutely.
They unblock you, send a long apology, and say they were just in their feelings.
Honeymoon.
Honeymoon,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah. You gonna do one more?
Sure.
Okay. They start checking who you follow and ask why you liked someone's post.
Tension building.
Yeah.
Questioning you. All right.
So now we're gonna kind of get into boundaries, and then we're gonna talk about a little bit about consent. Um, so boundaries are basically just like kind of the rules we have for ourselves, and there are guidelines, there are limits. It's how we communicate what we're comfortable with, what we're uncomfortable with, what we want, what we don't want, and it's that's how we kind of can pay attention to other people's boundaries, and then we also will communicate our boundaries to other people. And then we have different boundaries. So there's physical, or we have physical boundaries, we have emotional boundaries, we have digital boundaries. Um, and so physical boundaries is more of, um, like how close
Thinking
you want,
about personal space.
yeah, your space, like kind of like the bubble around you, right? So, obviously, like me and Macy are kind of close right now, so that must mean that we're okay with
Comfortable.
yeah, we're
Mhm.
comfortable with each other. Um, um,
This could also mean touching.
touching.
What do you feel comfortable with? Where
Yeah.
do you want to be touched? Where do you don't want to be touched?
Mhm.
Um,
If you like hugs or not.
Hugging,
Yeah.
feeling pressured or not feeling pressured to give a hug to someone.
Yeah.
It could also be privacy in a
Mhm.
certain aspect as well.
Yeah, so you have your bubble, right? We have our bubble that we have around us. That's part of our physical boundary, but it also extends to like our things too. So like your room or your house, maybe your vehicle, your bag, your purse, like that kind of stuff. Your phone, right? That's all part of your physical boundaries. Um, and then we have our emotional boundaries, which is kind of the same, but it's more of what our feelings. So like, you know, um, maybe if someone's asking you personal questions or things that you don't want to talk about.
Knowing what to share or when to share.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel comfortable with sharing? Feelings, protecting your own feelings, right? I know if I share this to this certain person, then they're going to blame me. And that's not what I need right now. So I'm going to set a boundary that I won't talk to this specific friend about what I'm feeling today. And then we got digital boundaries. Posting. What is okay to post? What am I okay with posting? What am I not okay with sharing online? Setting limits with texting, right? Maybe at 9 o'clock, I'm not texting anybody anymore. I'm not on social media. If it's not an emergency, I won't text anybody back until the next day at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Sexting? Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. What is your limits on sexting? What is your boundaries there? What does that look like? And I think it's really important to understand recognizing when your boundaries are crossed. What does, how does your body respond? How does your mind respond when your boundaries are crossed? And recognizing that within other people, right?
And what I was gonna say, and how you feel whenever, like, how do you know whenever your boundaries are getting crossed in any of these ways? Like, how do you know when you feel uncomfortable, right? So, like, I'm trying to think of an example, but I want to just kind of add to the digital one. So, like, Also, like with our phones and things like that. Like sometimes they're like whatever social media maybe you're on or an app or something like that. Like sometimes it's just so negative.
Yes.
And so like for myself, I'll set that boundary like, okay, I'm not gonna be on it anymore.
I
I'm
see
gonna
two negative things, I'm getting off.
yeah, or I'm gonna just take a break from this, you know, or something like that. Like TikTok, I got that all the way at the back of my phone because I get sucked in. So, you know, like, but that's about, I set that boundary with myself because I know that if I look on TikTok, I'm about to be in there for about 3 hours, just
And
like
we
zoned out. And I don't want to zone out. So I do that for myself.
and we hear of people taking social media breaks.
Yeah.
And I think this falls in lines with digital boundaries. And I'm gonna say that boundaries are difficult to set. Paige and I are both counselors, and I think I can speak for the both of us that we're human. We can talk about boundaries all day long. We can sit here and present
Yeah.
about boundaries for hours. However, it's difficult for us to set boundaries
Always a
as
work in
well.
progress.
Yes.
Yeah.
But in realizing that boundaries are meant to protect us, they're meant to protect our comfort, our values, our safety. Boundaries is what keep us safe. And so if we don't set boundaries and we allow people to we allow people to overstep our boundaries, we're doing ourselves a disservice. Because then we have to work so much harder to cope with the feelings that we feel because someone overstepped our boundaries or someone didn't respect our boundaries
And then
or we
also,
just didn't set them.
right, and it's also important for us to recognize that so that way, whenever our boundaries are being violated or our boundaries are being crossed, we're aware of that and we know that maybe that relationship, no matter whatever kind of relationship it is, right? Friendship, an actual dating relationship, or romantic relationship, I don't know, a relationship you have with a family member, right? Maybe that's unhealthy, right? Maybe somebody is taking advantage of your boundaries, and there's not any good boundaries there, right? So those are, you know, something you got to reflect on, and it might be a conversation you have to have with yourself and with those other people, because we all deserve to have healthy boundaries. We all deserve to set healthy boundaries, and we deserve to have our boundaries respected also. Right?
All right, consent. So consent means respecting someone's yes, no, or not yet. And knowing that it is okay at any time to change your mind about consent. Respecting others' boundaries, communicating your own boundaries, building trust with that person, but it really shows that you value the choices of others. Um, Consent is freely given. So when we give consent, we should not be under pressure. We should not be threatened to give consent. There should be no assumptions, no manipulations. It should be what I want.
Coercion.
I want this. Nobody else but me. It can be reversible. You can change your mind at any time.
It's not forever.
Yes, I'm going to consent to X, Y, and Z, but no, I'm not going to consent to A, B, and C.
So an example would be, yes, I want to date with you, right? That doesn't mean that I'm consenting to have sex with you,
Absolutely.
right? Or hold your hand, or kiss you, or I owe you anything, right?
Or, yes, I'm consenting to have sex with you tonight. Tomorrow doesn't mean, yes, I'm having sex with you today, right? I gave consent last night, but not tomorrow. It also should be informed, knowing what you're saying yes to, knowing what you're saying no to, knowing what you're saying not yet. Very important to know that if somebody is intoxicated or impaired, they cannot give in consent. If they're under the influence, they cannot give consent. It should be enthusiastic. Yes, saying yes is providing consent and giving consent. Just because that person said nothing does not mean that they gave you consent. They have to say yes, just not in the absence of no. And it has to be specific. Like we said, saying yes to one thing does not mean saying yes to everything. So yes, I'm sorry, I'm gonna say yes to giving you a kiss, but that doesn't mean that I want to have sex with you. I'm saying yes to kissing you. So then verbal versus nonverbal consent. We can give consent verbally, we can give consent non-verbally. So giving consent verbally, obviously, that is saying yes. Giving consent non-verbally looks like nodding, relaxed body language. But that can get really tricky, I find. We don't want to misinterpret misinterpret that nonverbal consent.
Or assume.
So, and assume. So we should always, yes, we should pay attention to those nonverbal consents, but we should always confirm with a verbal consent. Would you like for me to do this? Are you okay with me kissing you? Are you okay with going out on a date with me? And again, it should always be freely given, reversible, informed, enthusiastic, and specific.
So we're gonna do another activity. And so we're gonna kind of go through these little scenarios, and you'll kind of just put in your chat if it's a vibe, then that means that
It's healthy.
it's healthy, right? If that's sus, then that means it's problematic, right? So these are just kind of examples of just we actually give consent every single day, probably multiple times a day, and we don't even realize that we're doing it.
We don't think about it.
We don't think about it, right? So these are just kind of those examples. So the first one, can I share this photo of us?
That's a vibe, right?
Right,
Because
'cause
you're
you're
saying, you're
asking, yeah.
asking, you're saying what you're doing.
Mhm.
Can I? And it's very specific. I want to share a photo.
Okay. Sharing someone's contact info without permission.
That's us.
That's us. That's
Mhm.
us, right? What if they didn't want? What if I don't want my contact info shared?
Right.
Right. Okay. Hugging someone without asking.
That's sus.
That's sus.
Right? We don't know what is that person's physical boundaries. We may be overstepping the physical boundary there.
Okay. Adding someone to a group chat without asking.
That's sus.
That's us.
Mhm.
That's us, right? Um, you gotta tell. You gotta tell everybody in the group chat what's going on.
And you got to let that person know
Yeah.
who's in the group chat.
Yeah. Is it cool if I borrow your charger?
It's the vibe.
Like,
Asking permission.
and so again, like if you think about your charger, like that's yours. That's an extension of you, right? Your bubble. And so you can just go up in somebody's space and be taking that stuff. Okay. Sharing screenshots of private group chats.
Sus.
That's us. Not okay. Okay.
Mind if I share your contact info?
A vibe.
Forwarding an audio message to someone else.
That's us.
Sus.
Absolutely, that's sus. Pressuring someone to hang out after they declined.
That's us.
They said no. Listen to them. Taking a photo during a Zoom class and posting without consent.
That's us.
Is now a good time to talk about the project?
That's a vibe.
That's a vibe. You're asking permission to talk about something at a certain time. Do you want to ride together to lunch?
That's a vibe.
That's a vibe. Is it okay if I record this study session for my notes?
That's a vibe.
Is it okay?
Mm-hmm.
And tagging you at a location without asking.
That's us.
That's very sus. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're going to go into safety now. So I'll give you about 10 seconds, and I want you in the chat box to maybe write 1, 2, 3 words of what does safety mean to you. right, so what is safety? Mm-hmm.
Okay. So safety is just feeling secure in your body, your space, and your choices, whether that's online or offline. Um, so what makes somebody feel safe, respected, and supported? What are situations or behaviors that might make people feel safe, um, uncomfortable, or unsafe? And then how might people feel when they're safe? So, um, because safety means different things to different people depending on, you know, where they come from and what they've experienced. But it's about, feeling respected and having your boundaries respected, um, feeling protected, um, being listened to,
Support system,
supported,
being believed,
being believed,
Inclusivity.
included. Yep.
inclusivity. Mm-hmm. Yep. And again, like she said, safety means um, safety is different for everybody. What I may consider safety for me may not be considered safety for Paige. And what we do a lot in our work is we help individuals create safety plans. And in creating a safety plan, we talk about safe people, we talk about safe places, we talk about safe things, we talk about things to do, things that'll make you feel safe when you're experiencing a heightened emotion. So I think it's beneficial for everyone to have a safety plan, and that may be something for you to think about. It's creating your own safety plan and outlining your people, your places, your things that allow you to feel safe at any given point of time, whether that is at school, whether that is at your job, at your employment, whether that is at your home. And safety in those different environments is going to look different as well.
And there's a difference between like feeling physically safe and also feeling emotionally safe, right? Um, so, also kind of when you're making a safety plan or you're thinking about this, or you're reflecting on this, then you can think about, when I feel um, stressed, alone, um, who can I call? What can I do? Who can I reach out to? Do I have anybody? Or do I have resources? Um, or what would make me feel less alone, like just things like that. So it's important to also think about an emotional safety plan as well as a physical one, which is kind of just adding on to what Macy said, that what we do as well whenever we're working with survivors. So,
When we think about healthy relationships, we want to think about safety. Um, if you're in a relationship that's healthy, you should be in a safe relationship. But these relationships are built upon that open communication, that respect for one another, the understanding for one another, understanding for one's feelings, for one's doings. It's important to remain individual in a relationship, right? What I like may not be the same thing that my partner likes, and that's okay. What I feel about a certain situation may not be what my partner feels about the same situation. And remembering that that is fine, that is okay. It's okay to prioritize your privacy. Sometimes I do need to take a step back, right? Sometimes I do need to go in my room by myself and listen to some music. We're individuals. We're not meant to be the same. We're not meant to feel the same. And I think knowing that just creates this sense of safety within your relationship.
and a healthy relationship is about a partnership, right? So it's about equality, whereas abusive relationships are about power and control. A healthy relationship is about equality. So there's no power indifference, right? So we're right here, um, and it's okay for me to be me and you to be you, and I could do my thing, and I could have my own hobbies and my own interests and my own stuff, and you could have your own hobbies and your own interests, and then we can come together as a team, and then we can have together hobbies and together interests. I shouldn't have to lose my identity in myself. You shouldn't have to lose your identity in yourself, just because we're in a relationship. That's not healthy, right? Um, And so I think sometimes that maybe that's a misconception that many people have, is that when you're in a relationship, it's you're just consumed by each other, and that doesn't mean you can't spend time with each other. It just means that you should still be your own individual. It's you plus the other person equals y'all together, right? And again, don't get us wrong. We're not saying that it's all going to be, rainbows and butterflies and that sort of thing. Um, but there will be disagreements, but then you problem solve that together. And that's happening without where you still feel safe. You can be open. You can have a disagreement without the fear of, can I say this or can I not say this? Can I share my opinion? Can I not? Will this be used to get me against me, or will it won't? Or are they going to threaten me, or are they not? Right? Like, there's no violence in a healthy relationship. There's no manipulation. There's no um, threats and those things going on. And your boundaries are being respected, and you're respecting your partner's boundaries, whereas in abusive relationships you're not even allowed to have any, right? When you had some, that was taken away from you, that was violated. um okay, and then just to kind of touch on digital safety and location sharing, because like that's just kind of the world we live in now, and technology could do all sorts of things. Um And so, you shouldn't be pressured to, in a relationship, to location share or share your location, whatever, to prove loyalty or to prove you're not doing something. Like, that's not how that should be used. There should be a choice that's made between two partners, um, and it should be used for safety, not as a substitute for trust. And it shouldn't be an obligation or an expectation. Um, which I think, everybody should know that. And that, remembering that trust is built through communication and actions, not keeping tabs on people, um, surveillance on them, um, seeing where they are when they said they were going to be somewhere else. Like, that's not what that's supposed to be used for. Um, and privacy is a right, not a sign of hiding something.
Okay, and I think we're nearing the end here. Again, we just wanted to give you guys an overview of our services and our agency. Like we said at the beginning, we are from The Haven. The Haven is a domestic violence and sexual violence program. We service the parishes of Terrebonne, Lafourche, and Assumption. Within our program, we have many, many, many different services, and we kind of have those outlined right here on the left side of your screen. We have a 24-hour crisis line for those individuals that's experiencing domestic violence and sexual violence. You'll see those numbers on our screen right there. We have an emergency shelter for those women, children that are fleeing domestic violence that have nowhere safe to go. They have no family and friends to stay with upon leaving. They can come into our shelter. We provide counseling services. We provide counseling services to individuals that are living in our shelter, but then also that is living in the community. Maybe they are contemplating leaving, they're not sure if they want to leave, they're questioning if their relationship is abusive, um, don't know what's the safe way to leave, and so they can come into our office and speak with one of our therapists to work through that. We have legal advocacy services. We assist survivors with filing temporary restraining orders. We have an attorney on staff that represents survivors in court for those restraining orders. Um, we also have second stage housing. So upon um, fleeing the domestic violence relationship or exiting our emergency shelter, survivors seek long-term housing. And what that looks like is the Haven assists with paying a portion of their rent for months as they get back on their feet, as they reestablish their finances after leaving their abuser. And then community education. We do, as what we did today, we go out in the community, we do presentations and trainings for professionals to just bring awareness to domestic violence and sexual violence. And then we also have a medical advocacy program in which we have sexual assault nurse examiners and sexual assault advocates that respond to the hospital when a survivor um, discloses that they've been sexually assaulted. So that is a overview of the services. We can probably talk about that for another hour. Um, but that's just a little bit about what we do. We are part of a coalition in Louisiana that has many different programs. And so wherever you're living, wherever you're residing, there is a program similar to the Haven that has similar services. That if you need help fleeing a relationship or experiencing domestic violence, sexual violence, there is a program out there that can help you. We have our contact information here. We're more than happy to answer any questions. If you don't know what the center is that services the area that you live in, call us. We will definitely connect you. If you want to speak to myself or Paige, call us. We're very happy to form a relationship. We're very happy that River Parish has asked us to come to you guys and allowed us to speak today.
And we have a website as well, so you can always go to our website and kind of look at the different things that we do in a little bit more detail. It has some other things on it. And we also have a Facebook page. We don't put it on there, but we also
Yeah.
have a Facebook page as well. And then, so Macy mentioned that we were part of a coalition of other programs throughout the state. So because we are a domestic violence and a sexual assault program, we're part of two separate coalitions. So there's LCATV, which is the Louisiana Coalition Against Domestic Violence. So that's the statewide hotline that we have listed there, and then that's also the website. So if you are trying to get in contact with a DV program that is in the parish that you live in or the area that you live in, because you're not necessarily in our area, you can always go, you can either call that hotline number or you can go to that website. And on there, it has a list of all the parishes and all the areas. And then it has the program name that serves that area and their hotline number. And also, I think they're a link to their website. So that's a good way to kind of get in touch through that. But like me said, you can always just call us as well. And then that's the same thing for LaFossa, which is Louisiana Foundation Against Sexual Assault. So they also have a text, a 24-hour text chat line too, in addition to a hotline. And then, so we put their website on there as well. So it's a similar thing. You can go and you can see which sexual assault program serves the area that you live in. And then the last thing is that's just a scan code. So we're just asking that after you do this, if you could just scan that, that goes to a little survey for this workshop, this presentation. It's anonymous, so you can do that and then just kind of see, get some feedback from you about what you thought.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys. So that's all that we have for this afternoon. I'd like to thank Miss Page and Miss Macy for coming out and sharing the information with us. Hopefully, you guys will be able to take lots and lots of things away from this presentation and apply it. Hopefully, this has increased your awareness about how to proceed and things to look for in the relationships that you engage in moving forward. And again, make sure you look at those hotline numbers and chats, that information that they provided you all with, and not to forget that on our Title IX pages, we have some of that very same information um, listed there for you to have access to in the event that you cannot find it in this presentation. I'll have this presentation posted on one of the Title IX pages in a few days. or so. So if you guys are interested in looking or reviewing over this information again, you will be able to find it there. Thanks again for attending today. See you guys.